But I know like a lot of other vegans, they are more into like doing activism, on the street, talking to people. I mean, I wish I, I could do that, but I'm not that kind of person. My passion is different.
Welcome back, everybody, listening to the Vegan Changemaker Podcast. In today's episode, I have another beautiful, very interesting guest here. Today with me, it's Firmansyah Mastup, one of the co-founders of the Jakarta Vegan Guide. And he's also been creating a lot of different other projects that he will be telling us about in a minute. But it was so funny because just before we started recording, we figured out that we've met each other once here in Bali. And I kind of forgot, I vaguely remembered. And as you brought it up, I remembered it again. We had like these game nights in our vegan circle here in Bali where we would play Mafia, which is kind of like a social, playful game, and we would share dinner together. And that's where we actually connected for the first time. But then ever since then, we haven't met up anymore. So this is really cool to have you here as a guest on the podcast. How are you today?
I'm good, John. Thank you for having me here. It's been a while, but as I remember you, you always have that great energy, and I'm really happy that I can be able to talk again with you in this podcast, sharing about my journey and also the things that I do at Jakarta Vegan Guide.
As you said, we've met before. I thought back and I was like, oh my God, I remember him. And back then I was also thinking, oh my God, he's so cute. He's so handsome. So I was a little bit shy for a minute. But anyway, we're not here to talk about my emotions, but we're here to talk about what you bring to the vegan community and what you have experienced as a co-founder of the Jakarta Vegan Guide. Now, we both live in Indonesia. You're native. You're born in this country. I'm not. I came here in 2019, and before that for some holiday trips. And I think we can both agree that the vegan growth here in Indonesia, it's not fast at all. There's a lot of religious backgrounds that involve animal sacrifice or any kind of animal products. There's a lot of beliefs that are still circulating in people's minds here in Indonesia, and I think I can speak for Asia in general. So this might be really interesting for everybody who is based or a native Asian citizen somewhere on this part of the world. Do you want to share with us a little bit about how you went from your previous work? You told me a little bit about it before. You can share it with our listeners as well. How you went from your previous job to what you're doing now.
I was really interested with food ever since I was a kid. And that also led me into now doing a full-time job at Jakarta Vegan Guide. I work for a German company. They manufacture a technology for the kitchen where it can actually cook almost everything in the kitchen. So I do a lot of training for the chef. I also do sales, and I look after several other countries outside Indonesia, including Philippines. So I think that was really my passion, talking with peoples, but also be able to share my knowledge about, how you run a kitchen. But there's something that happened in 2017. I watched a documentary about, how we could actually live healthy without actually putting harm into the animals. So I think it was What the Health. But before that, I also watched another documentary. I think it's called Food Matters. I had no idea the movie was all about veganism, right? I thought it was just another food documentary, and I watched it. And I think I was the heaviest in my life at that moment of life. I wasn't also the healthiest. I drink a lot. I eat a lot of fast food. In fact, when I watched the movie, I was actually eating my beef burgers. So I was kind of,
Whoa.
it's like slapping my face and like, what are you doing? Like, like people are going vegan. So it took me a while. And actually, I was trying to go vegan for the first month after watching the movie. I also tried to educate myself, and also try to see whether being vegan in Jakarta could actually be possible. And at first, it was kind of hard. I was also kind of in the closet, between my circle, because I don't want to tell people that I'm going vegan, but then I decided to quit or whatever, because it happens when I said, oh, I want to go to the gym. And next thing you know, you don't go to the gym anymore. So I really want to commit, and I really want to make sure that this is something that I want to do for the rest of my life, because I realized that, like you could have all of the nutrition, from plants, right? And then after a month, I think it was possible. There were some kind of challenges, but I think I was lucky because I know how to cook. So I think that was the reason why I could really, be able to maintain the vegan lifestyle. Beside, I think the restaurant in Jakarta now kind of like have more option, and there are more vegan restaurant in Jakarta. But the first 1 year after going vegan, there were moments where I was like, oh damn, like the only restaurant I know was just like Bird Greens, and there's another one, and maybe another few of them, but it was really hard, to find all of this information. And as a vegan, only option is to go out, or eat outside. Not everyone can cook, right? So that was the first idea why I decided to build a platform, Jakarta Vegan Guide. So the reason was, it was basically just an information that I can also use. So it was coming from my frustration, finding out all of this information, and also sort of like a community where people can share their food. So we decided to build the platform back in 2018, which was around 1.5 years after going vegan. And I remember, even with just 50 followers, I still remember there is one brand approaching us. They want to send a product, and I was like, "Are you sure? Like, we only have 50 followers. Like, what do you want to get from this?" And we were so happy, we were so excited, and it was a passion, right?
That sounds so cool. It sounds like you figured out where there was a lack in providing a solution for vegan growth, for connecting vegans with each other, and also educating. And because you were frustrated, you generated an idea and shaped it together with, you said you have a partner, this two of you that created this Jakarta Vegan Guide?
Yes. So I'm more of the food side of the, team. I know the food industry, and my other partner, he's the one that actually understands social media. So it almost kind of like the perfect balance, like, so yeah, it was just kind of natural, and we just kind of complement each other. And I think that's the reason why we felt that it's working, because we both have different background that just complement each other.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so cool. Like when you build a team or you get people involved and you collaborate on something that everybody has their own unique skills. And this is something that I also talk about a lot. I think in our vegan community, a lot of people start, building a business or have a business idea that creates more veganism and helps, more people to be inspired to go vegan or educate them on it. And very often they're just lacking the skills, and they don't think that it would be great to build a team on that. So I think that's really cool that you mentioned that. And everybody listening today, remember that you don't have to do these things alone, right? So your unique skills, in your case, Firman, you have a background in hospitality, in restaurant, in foods. That's your strength, right? That's your skill set. So you bring that in, and then you have a partner who knows the social media and how to grow online. And I think that's a really good setup to start growing any kind of idea that results in a business. So congratulations. That's cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. One thing that I want to mention for listeners from all over the world, Jakarta is, up until this moment, the capital city of Indonesia. It still is, right?
It's still not until next year, though.
Okay, they're trying to change it to another one. Maybe that will happen, but it's the capital city, and it's located in the island, or on the island of Java. which is one of the bigger, or let's say well-known islands here in Indonesia. It's right next to Bali, where I'm at, just for everyone's information. Now, one thing that I'm also really curious about is you talked a little bit about your transformation with me personally before, right? And a lot of vegans can relate to how you learn about veganism, how you transform from being an omnivore or a vegetarian into a vegan. Now, you're living in Indonesia and you're also having a religious background. I would love to ask you, because I know a lot of like Indonesians or Asians that are inspired by veganism and they would like to go vegan, but they think they can't because there is a religion that doesn't allow them. So how did you find a solution for yourself? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so I think I was never been someone that really followed the rules during my elementary school. So in the morning, I would go to like a Muslim school, and then after that, I would just go to the regular school. So religion was part of my life. It almost kind of like your identity. People would know your religion first before your name, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I think it's there's a lot of people understood that having a religion is something that almost kind of you should like a lot of people just take it for granted. A lot of people born Muslim, but they don't really actually learn more on what being a good Muslim is all about. So for me, I think by being vegan, I always remember that not only you have to be kind to yourself, but you're a living being, which include human. And I think a lot of people don't really know that Prophet Muhammad is actually semi-vegetarian. So they only eat probably on certain occasions. So for me, it's like it's natural for me going vegan, as a Muslim, and in fact, it's actually makes me a better Muslim. But I'm not saying Muslim who are not vegan or vegetarian are bad Muslim. I'm saying for me, it just makes me like I, have a little like a better connection, with the religion that I have. But of course, it doesn't come very easy. A lot of people question my belief. A lot of people think that I switched to Buddhism just because I'm going vegan, which is kind of typical, but that's not the case with me. So religion-wise, for me, I don't have any problem. But I think what was the biggest challenge is actually the outside part. Your coworker, your job, and especially I work in an industry where people really see or take food seriously. So it almost kind of like, I don't know how to say it, like it almost disrespectful to be vegan in my industry just because it wasn't that common. And back in the days, Gordon Ramsay was anti-vegan. So, so you remember this moment, but he's now very pro-vegan. So things have changed, but earlier in my journey, like being vegan in my industry, it's almost kind of like a disrespectful, even though I didn't. Yeah, they were curious, like, oh, what you can cook, and I think like up to now, because now at Jakarta Vegan, we also do training for live chefs, because a lot of hotels, a lot of restaurants now are planning on launching a plant-based option and vegan option. And I remember I trained a whole team of chefs at one of the five-star hotel in Jakarta. And I told him about what is plant-based cuisine. And I think everyone would almost kill me just because I said, like, you cannot cook this, you cannot cook that. It was like, what do I have left? And that was the first meeting, right? And you know what's funny? Like the next meeting, which is like 2 weeks after, they actually print the whole thing that I presented and came back to me like, is this vegan? Is that vegan? So I think some of the people, like when they, sometimes when you encounter people who are very clueless about veganism, you feel like kind of, oh, it's offensive, right? And sometimes it's just not their intention. They just had no idea what veganism is. And the more they know about it, I think they'll they'll be more open to it. And sometimes what you have to do is just try to explain in a way that, they could understand, why you are, like choosing this journey and what are the other options. So I think for me, I think it was very rewarding, to be able to have this platform to give the message to like more people on social media, but also in the industry where in the beginning, when I started journey, like people look down on me, people kind of think I was crazy, but at the same time, it kind of like made me feel like I want to do it even more. I want to work harder so that I can prove them that this is going to be the future. Next time I meet you, you're gonna ask me how can I cook a plant-based menu, in my restaurant, and that's what's happening right now. All the restaurant in Jakarta now, they at least they have one vegan option. So I think it's working.
It sounds like it. And you know what I love so much about it is like you already saw the steps ahead. You saw the
Yeah.
steps ahead. You saw that this is the future. You knew in your heart that this is the right choice, and that gave you the motivation. And I loved when you said I was training like the staff at a 5-star hotel to cook vegan and make vegan meals.
Yeah.
And what I just had to think of, which is something that I see a lot of vegans not do yet, is take their uniqueness, like take their skills, take their passion and what they've learned, and then bring it into a vegan shape. Because I think like from my observation and people that I interviewed for this podcast in the past and clients of mine and friends of mine that went vegan or have been vegan for long, the most vegan impact we can have when we bring our uniqueness, like our talents, to the table and shape it in a way that it is aligned with our vegan vision. And I see how you did that. So smart, so beautiful, so heart-centered. So I want to cheer on you for that. That's amazing. That's really cool.
Thank you. Thank you. And I know I'm good at like doing some cooking demo. I think I know my things about food. But I know like a lot of other vegans, they are more into like doing activism, on the street, talking to people. I mean, I wish I could do that, but I'm not that kind of person. My passion is different, My passion is more like I want to talk about food, and I want to tell them that there are many other texture that you can find, in other plants, and in fact, in Indonesia, there are thousands of plants, that we haven't even explored. And talking about sustainability, I mean, you don't even like going vegan, it's not necessarily that you have to import everything, all this mock meat or alternative meat. I mean, you can actually make something out of the things that we already have. And Indonesia, we are so abundant in, a lot of like accidentally vegan option. Like, if you have the will, I think going vegan in Jakarta is not that hard at the end of the day. So, but I know, so when I started Jakarta Vegan, I know that we have to still educate like the people, but I also understand that imagine you're already vegan, but then you go to a restaurant and people have no idea about veganism. So that's where I think we have to do it both ways. You have to educate like the people outside this, like pretty much everyone, but then you also have to educate the people who is eventually going to give the supply, on the foods. Because at the end of the day, veganism, although it's not necessarily just about food, but food is like play a huge role in, in the success of someone who is trying to adopt a vegan diet.
It really plays one of the biggest roles. And I think it's a really smart move to see, okay, which audience, which type of people am I gonna speak to? Am I gonna educate? And you finding that you training people on veganism and training them especially on making vegan foods, but obviously also bringing in, like, I can just guess that when you're training them, you're also talking a little bit about veganism and why veganism, right? Because you're an ethical vegan. So you're actually doing the work that people on the streets do, just in a different setting. And the beauty of it is people already give you allowance to talk to them about veganism. On the streets, it's sometimes a bit different, right? You have to wait for people to come to show up, or online the same thing, right? You gotta find ways to speak to the right people. and let them receive the message and see that they're open or learn that they're open. And with you, when you get hired by that 5-star hotel and restaurant, you know, those people are already like, we need him to teach you how to be vegan. We need him to teach you how to be a vegan chef and learn how to make vegan food, right? And then the side effect of that is that they learn about veganism, which is amazing, right? So,
and you get paid for it. I mean, I'm not trying to make this like a, like focus on the money, but you could actually make this, like a business, and I think it's fun, and I think it's another way for you to see it,
Yeah. And I mean, any vegan business, I'm always surprised that some people criticize other vegans' businesses, although the vegan business structure always brings veganism to the world, because when somebody operates a vegan business, whatever it is, they're the center of that, or they're the creator of that. And so are you with your partner of the Jakarta Vegan Guide. It's so cool. I'm going to leave the link to that guide for everybody who's watching or listening to this in the show notes. Go ahead and check it out if you're curious, especially if you're in Asia or Indonesia. That might be interesting for you. And even more especially if you're in Jakarta, that might be really interesting for you. So tell us, next to the Jakarta Vegan Guide, you said before, you also have other projects going on. What else is happening on your end?
So, funny story, when we started Jakarta Vegan Guide, so we had no idea there would be a pandemic. So I quit my job in late 2019, but then it took me 3 months to finally sort things out and started Jakarta Vegan Guide full time, which was February 2020. And just like a month later, pandemic happened. And then all the things that we planned, doing events, doing campaigns, all of this thing that require communication with people offline, face-to-face, we just couldn't do it. After the pandemic, we were just thinking like, oh, what can we do about it? And then so Jakarta Vegan was invested by a local VC. So when we met, like a couple months before that deal happened, they were really interested with the plant-based industry. So that's why I quit. But then this pandemic happened, and so we still have like some kind of budget for the company. But then because the pandemic happened, we were thinking, what can we do? Because there's no way we survive by just doing the media. So there's this idea of doing a cloud kitchen. So basically, it's almost like a food court, but we try to fit in this digital world where people can just order online. And because we have experience and I work with all the vegan businesses in Jakarta, so like all the tenants that we feel like, I think they have the best product. So we put them in one space. People can order online, but also they can come to the place. Maybe in Bali, it's almost similar like Good, like Kolaborasi Untuk Desa, where they, have a lot of different options. But for us, we have this cloud kitchen concept where they have their own kitchen. So I think it kind of works. And we launched it in 2021, like a year after, because we had to find location. And then we were thinking, okay, what else can we do? Because renting just a space is not sustainable, and then we were thinking, oh, let's just talk and do distribution for Oatly, because Oatly back in like early 2020 was like a hit. Like some restaurant would sell it for like almost 150,000 per liter, which was crazy. People buy that.
That's about
so
$12 US for everybody,
that's
to understand.
Which is crazy for Indonesian to buy a liter of, like milk that expensive. So we thought in my work, we ordered 1,000 liter of it. And then, there's another type of coffee came to Jakarta, which was Delta. And then we basically had 1,000 liter of Oatly that is almost expired in 4 months. So we were freaking out and we had no idea what to do with it. So we reached out to the investor. I think we should make this like a product. And we were thinking, okay, maybe we should just do a coffee shop, because at that moment, all the brand that we handpicked for the cloud kitchen, there is no coffee shop. But then they said, okay, no more money for this. Let's just focus on the cloud kitchen. Don't even think about coffee shops. So we were like, okay, then we just try to find other partner. And then we actually found one. And he's also vegan. He's actually an Indonesian influencer and also a YouTuber. He believes in the industry, and we've been friends for more than 3 years because we both vegan, and we create a coffee shop. So now, beside the Jakarta Vegan Guide, we also had the Cloud Kitchen slash restaurants, like a compound where we curate all of this brand. And then we also run our own coffee shop where we only sell vegan, dairy-free coffee. So that's the three main things that we're actually doing. And I believe that no matter how much you encourage people to go vegan, eventually you also need to kind of like provide them with a solution. So it was kind of like natural for us to do this because like almost every day we tell them go vegan, you know, it's good for you. It's more ethical. But then when they step out of their house, finding vegan option is actually not that easy in Jakarta. So that was the reason why we also really, you know, wanted to do this, despite everything happened because of the pandemic. But we know that this is something we want to do before even we have the idea, you know. So that was the story. Sorry for the long story. I always get
Don't
too detailed about
apologize
this.
for such an amazing story. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah.
That's so inspiring. And for anybody who's listening or watching this and maybe is in Indonesia or Asia or lives in a country where you don't have a proper vegan infrastructure, where you don't have a lot of vegan restaurants, please reach out to Firman. I will leave your contact details in the show notes, your social media, your Instagram, etc. So reach out to him if you have any questions on how to get started, if you want to have some advice from him. I'm sure he's happy to give you advice. And yeah, that was it for this episode. I'm really inspired by like, you know, how entrepreneurial you're thinking about this and how you're bringing in the idea of we need to create a solution as well for the people that are looking for it but can't find it. So then starting to create that is another really powerful way of growing our vegan world into a more vegan world, or let's say growing our pre-vegan world into a vegan world. Oh my God, Firman, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners? Any last words of inspiration, knowing that most of our listeners are already vegan?
Yeah, I think for me, I think my last word for me in this podcast is like, whatever you have, like the skills, the experience, like I think you also already mentioned that I think you can put that into sort of like an activism in your own way. If you're a chef, I mean, you can cook vegan food. If you are, you know, someone that is very active in the community, that you want to do like food activism, and I mean there are many type of activism, and I think what I'm doing is maybe a little bit different, but I think it's better for you to know what you're doing. So it almost like will be more natural for you to start. And at first, what I did was just sort of like out of passion, you know, I just like make an Instagram account, and now we are building this company. And I think everyone can do that. And I think it will also have a great impact because when you do it with your passion, I think things will just fall into places, and a lot of people will be, you know, like appreciating what you're doing. So yeah, so there are many ways of, you know, vegan activism, and I think that's what I'm trying to say.
You did. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, let this be a reminder
Pleasure is mine.
for everyone, right? Thank you so much that regardless how you choose to be active, being active is important. And it's more important to be active in a way that you feel sustained in, you feel happy in, you feel content in, and you can actually feel like you're having an impact. So I want to thank you again one more time, Firman, for joining us today. And for everybody who wants to get in touch with him, every link that you need is down in the show notes or the description of this video. If you want to learn more about me and my work, I function as a life coach for vegans, and my vision is to drive the vegan growth to 50% of the global population by 2030, which is a big vision. And I think therefore we need a lot of really empowered, really smart and skilled vegans. So what I do is I teach emotional healing, I teach emotional resilience and mental stability, because that's one of the things we need to stay in the game as activists long term. And I also teach public speech, confidence and charisma in outreach conversations, on stage, or even online. If you want to make videos on veganism, then I'm the person to talk to. So feel free to reach out.